Hi, my name is Laurie, and I struggle with bipolar disorder type 2 and borderline personality disorder. So today I want to talk about finding a therapist or finding the right therapist for you. So two things to remember. Number one, therapists are human beings, and some of them have really good intentions and some of them have bad intentions. And also remember, just like waiters and waitresses, sometimes the therapist gives you good service and sometimes they give you bad service. And if the therapist is not right for you, then you should feel free to move on and go and try and find somebody else that fits your personality and what you're going through better. Number two, there are different types of therapy, and that's really important, especially if you're struggling with mental illness, because if you are going through a crisis in your faith or you are in sin and you feel like you need to see a Christian counselor, well, that's great. If you are having problems in your marriage or you're having problems with your family dynamics, maybe you're struggling with your kids, well, then a marriage counselor or a family counselor is great. But if you are actually struggling with mental health issues, then for me, and remember, I'm not a doctor, I'm the patient. For me, it's about going to a psychologist or a therapist who specializes in that, or someone who has worked with other patients that have mental illness. That's really important, is that you find the right one. But I'm going to share with you some examples of some good therapists I've had and some really bad therapists I've had. So one of the first therapists that I had was right after my divorce, when I had lost absolutely everything and I was so depressed. I mean, it was just unbelievable. So I had been recommended a therapist. I got there. He actually was full, and so they sent me to a different therapist in that office. Well, it was the biggest blessing ever, because when I went in there and I told him my story, he said, I have a very similar story. And he told me his story. It was so similar. And immediately I knew this guy knows what he's talking about and I can trust him, because he had gone to therapy, he had gotten through it, and then he went back to college to become a psychologist so that he could help others. So I immediately felt comfortable and felt like I can listen to this guy. So for me, sometimes it's about them opening up just a little bit. He didn't talk about himself all of the time. The sessions were about me. But every once in a while, if it was something that fits something that he went through and he thought it might help me, he would bring that up. I loved that because, like I said, it helped me to trust him. So I remember another time I went to a therapist and I went into her office, and within the first 5 minutes, I knew, like, no, you might as well leave now. But I didn't have the nerve. I didn't have the nerve to say, nope, you're not for me. But she was very shy, very introverted. She wouldn't look me in the eye when she was talking to me, and she looked down at the ground when she was giving answers. Very timid, very soft-spoken, and immediately I was like, oh, no. Like, my personality is way too strong for you. Like, you cannot handle me. So I knew immediately. So I did stay and finish up just because I didn't want to be rude or hurt her feelings. And so I did stay, but I never went back. I had another therapist who, this one was unbelievable, but I was actually sick and had gone to the hospital emergency room, and the people in the emergency room had actually mistreated me. They had been very judgmental, very harsh. They were not kind at all. Like, it was a really bad situation, and I felt so bad about myself. Now, I ended up having to go into the hospital, and I had to stay for a week. So I was actually there for valid reasons, but they just were really mean and cruel. And I just felt so bad about myself. Like, I remember crying in my hospital room, like, what did I say? What did I do? Why did they not like me? And I really got down. Well, after I got out of the hospital, I went to see my therapist. Now, I had only seen her about 3 or 4 times, and she was kind of iffy. I wasn't really sure if I liked her or not, but we were living someplace, and she had been recommended. So, but I told her about the situation. I told her, what had happened. And she said, well, do you want to know the truth? And I said, well, yeah. And she said, well, when people look at you, they see this, this, and this. When people hear you, they hear this, this, and this. She started going over every single negative thing that I thought about myself. every negative thing that I thought about myself, all of the things that I criticized myself about, all of the things that I hated myself for. She went over every negative thing that you could think of. I was crushed because not only had this woman, this therapist who was supposed to help me, just told me everything that she thought was wrong with me, but she was basically saying that this is what other people see when they see you or they hear you. I was crushed. I was so depressed for days. I just laid on the couch. I didn't want to go anywhere. I didn't want to move. Now, she realized that she had messed up because she called me at home that night to apologize. And then she called the next day to apologize. But the damage was done. The damage was absolutely done. I mean, I spiraled. Well, after that, we were taking care of my grandmother at the time. So after that, we moved back to Florida. And I found another therapist, and my friend used to say all the time, Laurie, she's just a cheerleader. Like, she's not doing anything to really help you. She's just a cheerleader. Well, after that experience that I had, I kind of needed a cheerleader. I needed somebody who looked at me and saw the good in me. I needed someone who looked at me and thought, yes, you can do this. Like, you're going to get through this. You're going to make it. You're going to do better. I needed somebody to cheer me on. And she happened to be what was available in my price range because she worked on a sliding scale based on how much money you had. And she's somebody who was very kind. She always was really good about listening. She tried to offer good sound advice, and she did. She cheered me on and made me feel like you can do this. So was I actually learning coping skills and healing from some of my, mental illness, symptoms? And no. But she was helpful at the time. And so, yes, I agree with my friend. She was definitely a cheerleader. But hey, sometimes that's what you need. So my therapist now, she bases her practice on the serenity prayer. God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. So when I got into her office and I started talking, the thing that she worked on the most was helping me to understand what I had control over and what I didn't. I can't control other people. I can't control their moods. I can't control how they treat me. I can't control what they say. I can't control what they do. And she worked with me. I know, like, we worked for a year or two. And I mean, every time, it would be like, now, Laurie, what pile is that in? Is that in the pile that you can do something about, or no? And so we really worked hard on that. And when I started seeing her, that was the first time where I really noticed improvement in my mental health. I really noticed that I was grasping the coping skills. I was practicing the coping skills, and I was getting better. The thing about coping skills is that you still have the illness and you still have the feelings and the emotions, but you know quicker what to do about it, And she is someone else who shared a little bit about her story. She doesn't talk about herself all of the time. It's very rare, but every once in a while when I'm talking about a situation or I'm talking about, she'll use something that happened in her life as an example. And again, that makes me feel more secure. It makes me trust her more. And it helps me to understand that she has been through some hard times in her life and she came through the other side, and that gives me hope. So anyway, those are some of my experiences. I hope that helped you. If you wouldn't mind, please hit the thumbs up button. Please subscribe to my channel, and thank you for watching. Bye.